This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Hasbro is absolutely tanking! Quickly, get the toilet roll. It's one of those once-in-a-lifetime crises happening again. When are they gonna stop? At least it's a crisis for Hasbro anyway. Profits are down, revenue is down, and the stock price is dropping like a rock. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of pop culture. And this is a huge deal because Hasbro are a massive company. They're huge. I assume you've heard of them already. They own all sorts of stuff like G.I. Joe, My Little Pony, and Power Rangers. But their most notable subsidiary is Wizards of the Coast, the vaunted custodians of Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering, aka two of the major pillars of nerd culture, alongside anime and social anxiety. So, what's going on? Is the new 1D&D spooking players? Or have investors finally found out that people are proxying Magic the Gathering cards and might not want to pay $1,000 for 4 booster packs? That's not a joke, by the way. Hasbro Wizards will be selling booster packs for $1,000, which is pretty appropriate considering it's Halloween season, and that retail price is one of the most terrifying things I have ever heard. So, what has happened? Well, a few months ago, Hasbro reported their financial results for the third quarter of 2022, and it's really bad. All their numbers are down significantly. Compared to this time last year, their operating profit is down 47%. 47%! That's almost half. It's a pretty significant amount to lose. If you lose half of anything, it's usually pretty bad. Oh, I only lost half an arm. Could be worse. Sales overall were down as well. Year on year, revenue fell 15% to $1.68 billion. And Hasbro aren't the only ones feeling the pinch. They're brightest beachgoers, they're sorcerous sunbathers, they're perfidious paddlers, Wizards of the Coast were the same. They're down this quarter too, and that's a really big deal. Wizards of the Coast are the most profitable part of Hasbro's company, so any squeeze on them is doubly bad for Hasbro, which is really scary to hear when you realize that Wizard sales have declined 16% this quarter year on year, which is an even bigger drop than Hasbro's. And unsurprisingly, this report has resulted in the stock price of Hasbro dropping significantly. Overall, their value has gone from $12 billion in May this year to $9 billion today. They've lost almost $3 billion in value over the last 3 months. That's an astronomical amount. That's more than the GDP of Belize, an actual country. In fact, things are so bad for Hasbro that their stock price has hit one of the lowest points in 5 years. And this might all come as a bit of a shock to many people who assumed that a company like Hasbro is basically untouchable, unassailable, an unsinkable Titanic vessel that cannot be stopped. So people are asking, how has this happened? Hasbro are a giant. They own all of nerd culture. And nerd culture is ascendant. Dungeons and Dragons is bigger than ever. Magic the Gathering is pumping out more product than ever. And that's working, right? That's making them more money, right? Well, let's talk about that. So firstly, Hasbro, for their part, have pinned some of the blame for their losses on inflation. That's not exactly surprising. Basically, every company is doing that these days. It's essentially the business boogeyman. Even when in a lot of cases, inflation is mostly irrelevant. In terms of Wizards of the Coast though, specifically, let's be honest, the Wizards of the Coast is the one that we are really concerned about here. Hasbro have said that the fall in revenue is a result of two main things. Number one, licensing costs for Universes Beyond. This is basically the brand name that they have given all of their licensing, and I'm surprised at this being trundled out as an excuse. These are the vehicle by which other products and brands like Walking Dead or Warhammer or Assassin's Creed or Doctor Who all get turned into Magic the Gathering cards and then sold. Go, run, enjoy your life, go. And personally, I would have really thought that these Universes Beyond products pay for themselves like 10 times over. But no, apparently they don't. They're actually losing Wizards money via licensing fees, so they're not paying for themselves. And of course, obviously, as products, they are designed to enrapture new players and pull them in from other IPs and spaces into the Magic the Gathering card game. I mean, who doesn't want a bunch of Warhammer wheels in your game running around spending money all of a sudden? But so far, that strategy does not seem to be quite working. And the fact that these aren't paying for themselves is especially bad when we consider them in the context of reason number 2 for Wizards Fall and Seals. They are pricing their player base out of their games. And this was acknowledged as a problem by Chris Cox, the Hasbro CEO. I'm not gonna make a joke. I will cover Hasbro more often though. He said that there's a, quote, price sensitivity for consumers. You think so, Cox? You think so? I mean, he's not wrong. Prices are going up and sales are going down. Doesn't take a genius to figure out this one out. The problem is that the guy agreeing that his products are too expensive is also the same guy that is pushing forward with a plan to sell 4 Magic the Gathering booster packs for $1,000 in the new Magic the Gathering product line. He is essentially complaining that the car is going too fast while he's trying to push the pedal through the floor. And he ain't stopping anytime soon. This downward spiral of sales speaks to a lot of the underlying problems that I see Wizards of the Coast having. And you might have noticed in this video that I've kind of conflated both Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast together as one entity, and that's not by accident. We can't really talk about the success or failure of Hasbro without talking about Wizards of the Coast and vice versa. Their fates are interlinked. Though, obviously, lots of people wish it were otherwise, Hasbro have an incredible amount of power to exert on Wizards of the Coast. And the success or failure of Wizards is integral to the success or failure of Hasbro. This is super important because the rest of Hasbro's library isn't doing too great in comparison to the Wizards of the Coast products. Most brands that Hasbro owned peaked in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. G.I. Joe, Power Rangers, My Little Pony. Sure, they all have a little bit of cultural cachet. Hasbro is a global brand after all. But Wizards are the most profitable studio that Hasbro owns, which means that Wizards will be the bludgeon by which Hasbro will likely attempt to batter their profits back into the black. And we've been seeing an increasing kineticism in both Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons. Products for these two game lines have been coming thicker and faster than ever, and increasingly aggressively monetized. And this per quarter is going to result in a doubling down on this strategy rather than it hitting the brakes. And speaking of brakes, before we talk about the terrifying future that lies ahead for both Hasbro, Wizards, and us, I want to take a moment to talk about today's sponsor. I have no idea how to code. I have no real idea how to use a computer. Yet I really wanted to set up a website for an upcoming spooky as hell sci-fi project. Luckily, Squarespace have sponsored this video. So spooky as hell sci-fi website is a go. And this was my first time ever using Squarespace, and I gotta say, they've created a brilliant tool. They are a website that creates other websites. Hello, we're in the Twilight Zone here. And as someone who can't code or use computers, I found making a spooky sci-fi website using Squarespace so easy and an absolute breeze. And I ain't an artist either. You can see my painted miniatures for proof of that. But I think that my webpage has come out absolutely beautiful, considering that I am a mere novice. I wanted dark and moody, and that's what I got. It looks better than I could have imagined, thanks all to the templates that Squarespace provide, that I mentioned before that I basically have no skills. Well, luckily, Squarespace have a huge library of art and images that they provide access to when you're building your site, and was so easy to do. They have an image block system that means assembling the website is as easily as assembling a hard plastic miniature. This ain't gluing metal wings onto a plastic model here. So don't delay, get yourself a bespoke online presence, get yourself a website, and check out squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/discourse miniatures to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. You can click the link in the description of this video. Thanks, guys. So back to the sinking ship. A situation, of course, that calls for rowing in the same direction that you've always been rowing. Unfortunately, that does seem to be the state of Hasbro right now. A loss in profit and a loss in sales is going to lead to an increase in predatory practices, an increase in monetization streams, and a doubling down of anti-consumer practices. How do I know this? Well, when Hasbro declared in 2018 that they plan to increase their profits by 50% over the next 3 years, they did so by pumping out as much new product to Magic the Gathering players as they could. New cards are coming out faster than ever. There were more Magic the Gathering products released in 2022 than ever before, and by a huge margin. In fact, Wizards released almost as many Magic products in 2022 as in their first 5 years combined. And just a few weeks ago, they took to Twitter to announce that once again, they want to increase their profits by 50% over the next 3 years. This, by the by, was a comically ill-advised thing to say alongside the announcement that they would be selling 60 pieces of cardboard for $1,000. Sorry, I keep bringing that up, but it's unreal. It's unreal. They did, however, end up deleting this announcement, by the way, out of either sheer embarrassment or just a fear that the optics were bad. But in their investor presentation earlier this month, Hasbro let the mask slip. Big companies always do in front of investors, because investors matter, players don't. During this presentation, they promised an increase in $2 billion in sales over the next 5 years, leading to annual sales of $8.5 billion in 2027. Can you smell the dystopia? Because it's here. So their intention remains the same. There's only one way for them, as they see it, to rescue the company from its current decline. And that's to turn the fire hose on, baby. I hope you like products to consume, because there's gonna be a hell of a lot more. And not only more traditional products either. Hasbro have announced that they're going to make way more money selling digital products. They're going to have way bigger margins by selling premium products directly to consumers, cutting out those pesky third-party local stores. And they're going to license their IPs more aggressively. Sounds exciting. This is genuinely their plan for making more money over the next 3 years. And all of this on top of investing in their brand insight platform, allowing them to make data-based decisions, presumably allowing them to optimize how much they can gouge consumers. I mean, you thought pricing was too high? Well, too bad. It's going to get worse. Those $1,000 booster packs that Wizards are selling for Magic's 30th anniversary will not be going away. The sound barrier has been broken, and sure, there's lots of griping about the product being extremely expensive, but it will sell out. They have optimized the price. And Magic the Gathering, by the way, has been selected as the first billion-dollar brand to be the tip of the spear of many of Hasbro's more aggressive strategies. But they're not alone. WizKids has recently released a $100 pack containing 8 miniatures. $100 for 8 badly painted miniatures! Like, that's absurd! You know things are bad when you make Games Workshop look like good value. Seriously, what the hell, guys? And unfortunately, all of this puts pressure on players. Many of these products are just out of reach of the average consumer. As a result, is it really a surprise when many drop out? I feel like this is a self-defeating strategy. As much as Hasbro are claiming that they are a forward-facing, long-term oriented corporation, the truth of the matter is that all of their plans for growth are short-term oriented in reality. It's like if George Clooney in Ocean's 11 claimed that he had the perfect heist planned, and then he just robbed a bunch of liquor stores at gunpoint. Pushing prices, cutting out third-party stores, increasing the rate of releases may result in profits next quarter and even next year. But are these plans good for the long-term health of their products and fandoms? They're chasing profit at the expense of everything else because as a company, they want the maximum amount of money right now. Right this instant. And if they think that it'll create profit in the here and now, they are going to pump out more products than anyone can keep up with, even if that means people will leave. They will push prices higher if people pay them, even if that means that people will leave. And it means more $1,000 booster packs that maybe aren't great for the game, but will sell out. It means turning products into platforms. Magic the Gathering with Universes Beyond, and 1D&D with their new virtual tabletop system. It means 8 Dungeons & Dragons miniatures for $100. Our hobbies are becoming increasingly monetized at the expense of everything else. And this can lead to a downward spiral. As prices get higher and people get pushed out, the user base gets smaller, and the parent companies need to monetize the products even more aggressively to maintain their previous profits. This is a very dangerous place to be, but it is a siren call that catches many companies. And look, the market is in a precarious place right now. It's not exactly the time to be pushing premium pricing, in my opinion. Hasbro really need to be aware of this. Magic cards aren't exactly a guaranteed moneymaker these days. The cost of living crisis is getting worse. Electricity bills, gas, the tax on living is getting really bad for a lot of consumers. In the UK right now, there's talk of electricity blackouts this winter, of traffic lights and banking systems losing power. Things are bad, potentially getting worse, and this could have a huge knock-on effect on companies like Hasbro that sell physical entertainment products and rely on big spenders to make their money. In that environment, potentially alienating a passionate core audience is an extremely risky gambit. Honestly, this entire story feels so familiar to me, and I expect to a lot of other people too. It feels like things have never been more predatory, more overwhelming in our hobbies than now. In wargaming, Games Workshop are innovating in one way, figuring out how to spit out more releases than ever at increasingly higher prices, how to get people to pay more for less. The same with movies. Disney seems to be shooting out more and more content every day, each one linked, all part of their deluxe exclusive streaming service. Video games, probably the worst of them all, are filled with loot boxes, battle passes, season passes, cosmetic skins, DLC. It's a wasteland. Rather than be happy with steady, reliable, and sustainable revenue, it's all about constant, exponential growth. It feels like so many companies right now are engaged in deforestation. It's not sustainable. The places where I used to find respite, relaxation to quiet my brain are becoming increasingly stressful as the businesses that operate them seem to be more concerned with simply trying to squeeze more money from me than actually turning out good products that are just fun and good. So, no, Hasbro Wizards are not going to collapse tomorrow. This terrible quarter is not the end of Hasbro or of Wizards of the Coast. They are not dying, they are not dead, they are still making billions of dollars. But the relentless push to create more growth at the expense of everything else is resulting in a house of cards. One that long term could collapse as Hasbro Wizards absolutely run themselves into the ground, desperately trying to claw more money with every breath without considering the longevity of their products. And they're not alone. For example, Games Workshop recently bungled their biggest launch of a new Warhammer army in all of Warhammer 40k's history. If you want to see about that, check it out here. And all of these topics are things I cover on this channel, so if you want to support the content, check out my Patreon at patreon.com/discoursminiatures for ad-free videos and exclusive Discord room in my Discord. And I'll catch you next time. Thank you, Sonic Bread, and to all my patrons, and thanks Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Bye-bye!